Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Maxine Hankins Cain, and welcome to a community conversation about issues that matter. We are so happy today to have two distinguished young men with us today. We have Dr. Eugene Cain, a resident of Lansing, Michigan, and we have City Clerk Chris Swope. Thank you both for coming and joining me, and I am prepared, and I hope you are too, to have a very, very meaningful and productive conversation about what matters. And what matters at this point in time is that we need to get people out to vote. So we're going to start with you, City Clerk Chris Swope. Swope, S-W-O-P-E. It rhymes with
right.
hope and
That's right.
cope. Long O, silent E for the audience.
Perfect.
Swope. Who are you beyond your name? Who are you? Your elevator speech.
Well, you know, I have been a part of this community for a very long time. I'm a lifelong Michigander, and then more from Southeast Michigan, but I came to Michigan State University and have stayed in this area ever since. I moved into the city of Lansing itself in the early 90s and got involved in politics. I ran for city council once and lost by 65 votes, so I know the importance of every single vote.
Absolutely.
Later, I ran for county commissioner, got elected 3 times, and then during my third term, halfway through, I ran for city clerk and have been city clerk. So I'm currently in my 5th term, so it's almost 17 years I've been city clerk. So I have a history of involvement in the community in various ways. I served for 20 years on the Community Mental Health Board for the Tri-County area. I have been a member of neighborhood boards, East Side Neighborhood and West Side Neighborhood boards. Currently a member of Rotary, very proud to be on the board and participating with that great organization that does so many things for our community. So I'm just someone who believes in everyone being able to exercise their rights, and so that's part of my role as city clerk.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Cain, who are you beyond that name? Dr. Eugene Cain.
Where did I start? I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I was listening to a program the other day, and the narrator said that Birmingham was the epicenter of the voting rights crusade and civil rights. I found that interesting, having lived there. But I've been in Michigan since 1965. And 50 years as an educator. I've taught at every level, performed almost every job that you can think of. Been a school superintendent, an assistant state school superintendent. Started the Mid-Michigan Public School Academy and closed my career with Shabazz Public School Academy. Aside from being involved in a number of professional activities. But my thing right now is that I'm retired, happily retired, but still have my fingers on trying to help young people develop. And right now I'm associated with a group called Dream Warriors. I'm on their committee, and that's one where we're focusing for the time being on young men.
Okay, thank you for sharing. City Clerk Swope.
You just call me Chris.
Okay, Chris. Okay, Chris.
We'll make it easy.
Okay, Chris. As City Clerk, what exactly do you do? What are your responsibilities? Who's on your team? Why does your role matter?
Well, I have a lot of duties as city clerk. One of them is I am the clerk of the city council, so I prepare their minutes and agendas for their meetings. I'm also in charge of most business licensing for the city of Lansing, so that goes everywhere from ice cream peddlers to marijuana sales. So I've become, in the last few years, very involved and knowledgeable about regulating marijuana, which was new. I'm also the official record storage for most city documents. But the thing that I find most important of my job as city clerk is being in charge of voter registration and elections. So my office, we run elections for the city of Lansing. And my team includes, we have about 6 people in the office on a daily basis. And then as we get near to elections, especially a big election like this, we bring on additional staff. So right now we're at about a dozen. On election day, I'll have several hundred employees. Every one of the people that work in the polling places are part of my team. And they're election inspectors is their title, and they are actually paid. We're always looking for good people to be involved in that way. But it's a very important role, and they're trained by us and sent out there a little bit on their own. So we have 2 or 3 elections a year, so they're trained, but then they're kind of doing this job a couple times a year, so there is so much knowledge that they need to have, and I really appreciate our election workers. They have a big role, and they're the front line for most voters.
Thank you. In fact, there's a training session going on right now.
That's right. We're training
Across
some
the
of our
hall.
new election workers, so we've got 2 sessions today. And what we do is new election workers, we usually give them kind of more of a learning role. And then as people work more elections, they can develop more skills and be more used to things and take on higher responsibilities.
Okay. I know Dr. Cain and I will come back tonight and get trained
Oh, good for you.
as our election.
Election
So-
inspector, there you
Inspectors.
go. Inspector, there you go.
Okay, very
Inspector
good.
Cain.
Yes. Dr. Cain,
Yes.
you majored in history and economics, and you are quite well read about historical matters. We weren't always allowed to vote. Can you speak in terms of what that meant then, what that meant now? Give us some history about the Voting Rights Act.
Okay. I'm going to make this very personal.
Okay.
And I'm not going to start with the 14th, 15th, 16th Amendment, better known as the initial Civil Rights Amendments. I'm going to start with myself, being a kid growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, and also Lowndes County, Alabama. I always considered myself the bridge from slavery to where we are today. And the reason I say that is because for a while I lived with my great-grandmother, who was a former slave, born in 1862. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my maternal grandfather, the first 4 years of my life in a place called Hopewell, Alabama, next door to Selma, right in the heart of the Black Belt, sharecroppers and what have you. Those folks couldn't vote. They couldn't vote. And here I am, Birmingham, in the mid-50s, and my father got involved with the NAACP. And he and his buddies would take these canisters around. I tell everybody, they were always Maxwell coffee canister, and they would take and collect money, and they would send it to the NAACP office, in New York City, and the whole thing was getting people to vote. Now, mind you, at that point, a lot of the citizens I know in Lowndes County and a lot of them in Birmingham were not able to read and write. So on the ballot, if you were lucky enough to get a ballot, because you had to pass a literacy test. And my father was self-educated, and he would, I guess he might have been one of the inspectors, clerk and voter inspectors. I can see it right now. Mm-hmm. These men on the back stoop of our house, and my father going down all these questions, we've come a long way from immediately after the civil rights. After the Civil War, you had these people without rights, and fortunately, there were people with conscience enough to say that these newly freed people need to be able to vote. But mind you, when the amendment passed, I believe it was the 15th Amendment, the first one said all persons born and naturalized in the United States are citizens thereof. That's the 14th. But what good to have 14th if you're not allowed to vote then 15th? But it didn't include women. And it wasn't until the turn of the century that women were allowed to vote. But between the time of the Civil War, the end of the Civil War, and so-called Reconstruction around 1870, there were two things that these new citizens, former slaves, wanted to do. Three things really. To read, to learn how to read the Bible, and to vote. Those were the three drivers, and no matter what part of history that you are into, you see that. Now, there have been several iterations of civil rights legislation from 1866 up through 1964 with President Lyndon Johnson. A lot of people consider that as the first big civil rights legislation. And then there have been periods, I think it's renewed so many years. But we find that in certain states, they have brought about legislation to make it difficult for people to vote, unfortunately. And that's what we're wrestling with. So that's a roundabout way of giving you the history of it from a personal perspective. Last thing, my grandfather, maternal grandfather, used to always say, whatever you do, boy, vote. Vote. And that stayed with me.
Thank you. I know initially only white men who own property
Right.
were allowed to vote.
Right.
If you didn't own property, you couldn't vote at all.
Right.
And all those things have changed recently, but we're having so many challenges today with the voting rights. Why is it important for people to vote today?
You know, there's so many decisions that are made by the people that we elect that impacts our everyday life, all the way from our personal medical decisions to our voting rights. I mean, everything, so many aspects of what we are able or not able to do are controlled by that. And then we have also not only the people we elect, but we have proposals that are on the ballot that give us that direct democracy to make decisions about how we want our state or our community to be. Whether it's tax issues, right now we have a proposal on the ballot to do a bond for the city of Lansing to build a new, some police and fire building infrastructure, and we also have on the ballot voting rights directly. We have a proposal too, which would institute some voting rights that I think are needed, and we need people to get out and protect that. We also, on the opposite side of that, there's a proposal that would enact legislation to limit voting rights, and the legislature could pass that if we don't pass Proposal 2. So they could be moving things in the wrong direction. Luckily here in Michigan, we have a governor who has vetoed several bills that would have made voting harder. So you have to have to vote to protect your rights in general, but you also have to vote to protect your right to vote. And you know, have your say. You know, your vote is your voice, and you know, if we're silent, then that can be interpreted as giving people permission. And you know, we don't want to give away our agency and give away our permission. We need to protect that. We need to protect ourselves and protect our families and protect our own rights.
Thank you for sharing. I was going through this, the League of Women Voters document that they, I think, publish every 2 years. This is a great piece of literature here. It talks about all of the candidates, all the proposals that you have here. I think they've interviewed several people and gotten their responses in here. But one thing that I read in here was democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. A lot of people don't know who is running.
Right.
So I'm gonna appeal to the listening audience to get this document here, or the City Pulse you were saying has a good summary.
I think that's the insert of the City Pulse that I referenced.
And the League of Women Voters also makes that available online, so you can go to vote411.org and put in your information about where you live, and it'll bring up candidates' responses. So if you're unable to find a paper copy, you can access it in other ways. So League of Women Voters does a great job of putting that information out there to help us be educated, and it's all in the candidate's own words. So they ask questions that they think are important to whatever office the person is running for, but then the responses are in the candidate's own words. And you'll see, if you look at that, not all candidates even bother to respond. So that kind of tells you maybe something about either how much they care, or maybe how organized they are.
Yeah, but either here or online, they can get that information. Question: who is eligible to vote? When is the deadline for them to become a voter? And how old was Munby?
Okay, so you have to be 18 by Election Day.
And election day is
Tuesday, November 8th is election day. So if you're going to be 18, you can register now. You don't have to wait until you're 18. You can register up to 6 months ahead of being 18. But in order to vote in this election, you have to be 18 by November 8th. So you can register now. Up until 2 weeks before the election, you can register by filling out a form in the mail. If you have a Michigan driver's license or state ID, you can go online and register to vote online. You can register at a Secretary of State branch office. You can come in person to my office. And then during that last 2 weeks, up to and including Election Day, you can register in person at your city or township clerk's office. So we now have, since 2018, that was another amendment that we made to our Constitution to expand voting, we have up to same-day registration. So when you do that during the last 2 weeks, you do have to bring some ID and proof of residency. So, come in person. And if you want to, you can get an absentee ballot. You can get a ballot right away. You can come in one stop. You can register to vote, get a ballot. If you want to, you can fill it out right then and turn it right back in and be one and done.
Thank you. Good information. Now, speaking of ballot, this is my personal ballot. And this came in a large envelope with these items in it. And I haven't filled it out yet.
Okay.
Dr. Cain has one too. But here it says partisan section, nonpartisan section. What is the difference between the both of them?
Each office is designated, whether it's elected by party, so partisan, or whether everybody just runs as a candidate without a party name attached to them. So many offices are partisan, and they're the ones you think about, governor, state representative, member of Congress. All of those are partisan. And we have the ability in Michigan, some of these things are different state by state, but in Michigan you can vote a straight party, which means you can make one mark for that party, and every candidate in that party will get your vote in the November election.
Can I show this?
Sure, yeah.
For example, here, straight party ticket. They can push, they can pencil in Democratic Party, Republican Party, Libertarian Party, U.S. Taxpayer Party, never heard of it, Working Class Party, Green Party, or Natural Law Party. So that takes care of this.
Of the whole partisan section.
And this.
Right. So generally the first two columns, and then the third column is where the nonpartisan section starts.
Okay.
So those, so on the partisan, you can vote straight party, and then if you vote for a specific candidate, then that's called a mixed ticket, so you can vote both. You can do that. So say you like all the candidates of one particular party except for your next door neighbor is a different party and is running for one office. You could vote straight party, that party you like, and then vote for your neighbor, and in that specific contest, your vote for your neighbor will override the straight party.
Okay, I understand that. I hope the listening audience understands that.
Okay.
Now,
you can also just totally skip the straight party and just vote for individual candidates all the way through.
Okay, so it's easier to do just that one little thing,
It's
and
a
then do
time
your little
saver.
neighbor
Right,
as an
right.
anomaly.
And
so,
then nonpartisan, there's no way to vote them all at once. You have to vote individually for those.
judicial positions, judge of Court of Appeals, judge of Circuit Court, 30th Circuit Community Colleges here, local school district.
Right.
All of
So
those
those are some very
individual.
important roles. I mean, if you think about the role of education, some of the policies that are being talked about in different places, the school boards are sometimes a very important position.
Absolutely.
And they're the learning grounds for people who may run for different office. So sometimes those are really key races, and they are nonpartisan. So it does take the voter a little bit more work to know who they're voting for.
Yes. And then on the back, you have certain proposals that you had mentioned. So we hope that the listening audience will, number one, get this and fill it out and drop it off at any here
So
on Washington.
if you're in Lansing, yes, we have 15 drop boxes across the city. So one at each fire station, one at each community center, the CATA depot downtown, as well as their main offices, and then City Hall and our South Washington location. So there's 3 ways to vote. You can vote by mail, which is what you did. You got your ballot mailed to your home. You can vote early in person at our office. You can come to either City Hall or the South Washington location. And for the last 2 weeks, we will also have a satellite location in the Foster Community Center. So you can go to any of those 3 places, pick up your ballot, and either vote it right then or take it with you. Or the third option is to vote at your precinct on Election Day.
All kinds of options. So
All
take
kinds of
advantage of just
options.
one of them and get that vote, here. Dr. Cain,
Yes.
we have heard over and over again that democracy is on the ballot. Democracy is at risk. You have to vote because democracy is being threatened. What does that mean to you?
When I hear that expression, the first thing I say comes to my mind: of the people, by the people, for the people. And if you want to enjoy full citizenship, I think it is incumbent on you to become a voter, regardless of who you vote for. Participate. I was listening to Chris. He's made it so during his reign as city clerk. He has made it. He and his staff have made it so convenient, so easy for you to vote. Now think of my father on the back steps with 3 or 4 non-literate men, showing them a Lincoln, a penny. That's how the ballot used to look. Mm-hmm. There were so many illiterate blacks and whites in Alabama. They would show the image. Are you going to vote with Lincoln? You know, you vote that particular penny. Mm-hmm. So, to where we are today. So we've come a long way. Another thing, being an educator, I think Michigan law says civics is required by 8th grade, I believe, or 9th grade. I don't know what the situation is now, but when I was teaching high school in Detroit, we had, for our 12th graders, we had simulations right in the schools. I taught at Cooley High School, and I did night school at Northwestern. They even had it in, we would do simulations where they had a ballot, and they would go in and cast their ballot. And we had, prior to the casting of ballots, we had students who would study the issues and present the big issues before a large group. Whether they're doing that now, I don't know. And what was interesting, too, about where I grew up, there were various auxiliaries like the Masons, the Eastern Star Group of Women, even churches. In the afternoons, they would have simulation of voting. Now, you can sense that at that time there was this sense of urgency. And sometimes I think that we don't have that same sense of urgency. Take, for example, the issue before the Supreme Court yesterday about Alabama. You know, you got 27% of the citizens of Alabama are black. They have one representative. And you ought to see how that district has been drawn by the legislature. It goes from Selma all the way up to the Birmingham. It's a little sliver. Mm-hmm. And to do that, to deny people the right to vote, and if you're sitting on the sidelines and you didn't vote, you know, I tell people, you know, I've had friends, I've been on juries, and juries, the first thing they do, they look at the electorate to see who's eligible to serve in the jury pool. And, you know, voting, as Chris says, touches every facet of our life.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
Thank you. Thanks for that response. What's happening on October 29th from 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock?
We are doing our third annual holiday trunk or treat. Now, we started this during the COVID shutdown because we figured we could have people out in our parking lot here at 2500 South Washington. We could make it a fun family thing. We knew a lot of kids wouldn't be able to trick or treat that year, so we had booths set up and people were able to get candy with their kids, and we had kids come through with their Halloween outfits, and we did some mock voting and different things to entertain and teach, while at the same time the adults, if they chose to, could also vote in person. They could pick up an absentee ballot and vote it. So we have kept that going. It's a fun day to come and teach your children about voting, show off your costumes, learn about some civic organizations, because we have some great civic organizations that also get involved with it and help us make it a fun event. And if you choose to, you can register and vote on that day as well. I invite everyone to come and participate here at 2500 South Washington, and you'll smile and you'll have fun.
October 29th from 1 until 4 o'clock. We hope that you have learned a little bit more about the voting process. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Cain and City Clerk Swope to give closing remarks. Look in that camera and talk to the people and tell them why you feel it is important to vote. I'll start with you, Dr. Cain.
Well, using the latest lexicon, voting matters. Your vote matters. Whether you're voting for the mayor, city council, it's nice to sit back and say, I participated in this decision. I might have won, I might have lost, but that's not important. The most important thing is that I got off my butt and I voted.
Thank you. I hope you heard that. Now it's your turn.
I said but.
I will say your voice, your vote is your voice, and if you don't exercise it, someone else is speaking for you.
Exactly.
You can vote at home, you can vote early, or you can vote on election day. And I can tell you, me and my staff and other clerks across the state I know are dedicated to us having a safe, secure, and accurate election. So come out and vote. We make it as easy as we can for you to exercise your constitutional right.
And I'm going to say there is no excuse. You matter. Your vote matters. Get up, get out, and vote, and bring some friends along with you. Democracy is on the ballot. It is on the ballot. So we need you to do what you need to do to make your voice be heard. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation with our two distinguished guest members, and hopefully we'll see you again. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.